All of Tracy Wolff's books in the Crave series start with the letter C, but she forgot one. Cringe. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Reading Crossbow podcast. My name is Lena, and today we are talking about the Crave series by Tracy Wolff. But before we get into that, I just want to introduce you to our show if you haven't been here before. We are a two-person podcast, and my other co-host name is Rob. Twice a month, we have shows together. Rob picks a book, I pick a book, and we cover those books each month. We both have very different tastes. Rob's really into grim dark, and I'm really into romantic fantasy. But we both agree that we love fantasy and we love books about magic, and bonus points if they have a map in them. The other two episodes each month are solo episodes where we each get to do something that we're interested about on our own. But enough about that. Let's talk about the book series Crave and why. Why would I do a podcast on the worst fantasy book series I've ever read? I mean, seriously, why did you click this thumbnail? Well, I'm going to tell you. I don't fully know. I know that I did enjoy reading these books for the first bit. They're very quick to read, super readable. The subject matter, well, right up my alley. Vampires, werewolves, dragons, magic, romance, mating bonds. I mean, 200-year-old vampires. This is like kind of what we read, you guys. We read this. If you are a romantic fantasy reader and you're here, you know what I'm talking about. But like, why did I stick with it? So we're going to get into that. But first, about the author. Tracy Wolff has written several series. It's kind of her thing, and this is no exception. However, she wrote all 6 of these books in just 3 years. These suckers were ripped out. I'm briefly going to mention this. I won't do an episode unless you guys want me to, but there is a lawsuit on plagiarism going on right now with Tracy Wolff. Did she do it? Did she not? I've read all through it. It's super interesting. If you want me to cover that, I will. Part of me thinks she did, part of me thinks she didn't. I don't know. All I know is at the time when all of that was going on and I was reading about it, I was just trying to enjoy the books. But pin on that. If you want me to do an episode, I will. A bit about what these books are. So this is an Academy book series, and there's a bunch of books out about academies. There's like Zodiac Academy. There's even Fourth Wing, where it's a military war college. And I tend to love this style of books. But this one is a academy for magical creatures like vampires and werewolves and dragons. And the story really centers around a teenage girl, of course, in very Disney-like style. Her parents die, and she is basically taken in under the wing of her uncle, who is the headmaster of the academy in Alaska. So, yeah, not a whole lot of like creativity here in terms of like what's already out there. I feel like this kind of storyline has been done before, but it was done in an interesting way, and that's the general overview of the books. These academy kids have a lot of challenges. There's actually games, much like your Harry Potters, in these books that they have to compete in at the academy, and there is a whole world of intrigue, and I love my political intrigue. If you've watched the show, you've heard that. So there's like royal families that all of these kids come from, and they are like fighting sort of at war with each other at times. And so the kids, you know, they're drawn into this drama. So that's kind of the book series as a whole. So let's talk about each one of these books on their own, just very briefly. So Crave, this is the first book in the series, and this is where everything kicks off. Our main character, Grace, her parents, they're dead. She has to go with her uncle, Katmere Academy. He's the headmaster, walks through the doors. Whoa, these kids are kind of weird. Doesn't guess for a long time that, hey, they're monsters, even though all the signs are there. Quickly falls in love with the dark, brooding shadow dude, of course. Doesn't know he's a vampire, although I don't know why. And is constantly in danger because she's the only human in the mix. What's cool about it, though? Why did I read it? Well, it's interesting because I love mating bonds. Like, if you've read books like ACOTAR, like, that's interesting to me. You either love them or you hate them. I'm starting to hate them because I've read about them so much. However, it's done differently in this book. Much differently. Inside her, which gets explained a bit more along the road, she sees these kind of strings, like interweaved strings connecting to different parts of her life. She can feel the one from her parents, even though they're gone. She can feel the one for her best friend. And the mating bond one is the strongest one. So she can actually kind of like look inside and see and feel this. And I thought that that was really neat. Anyway, first book ends up being a sacrifice gone wrong. And the shadow boy that she loves, well, he has a deep dark brother. And anyway, at the end, they somehow get trapped together and she turns into stone. All right, book 2. I didn't say it on the last overview, but the boyfriend, his name is Jackson. His brother, his name is Hudson. They're both vampires. In this book, Hudson is trapped inside of Grace. Guess what? Grace is a gargoyle. Whoa, actually kind of cool because I've never read a book with gargoyles in it. Loved this part. Anywho, this whole story is about a vampire being trapped inside her, and apparently she might love him, yet she has a mating bond with her boyfriend Jackson, and it's very confusing, and they must participate in this Harry Potter style school games called the Ludaris, and she basically needs Hudson to help her get through this, and she needs to learn how to master her gargoyle skills, even though she's the only one left on the planet to win these games. Also, someone dies. Book 3. Surprise! Jackson is not Grace's mate. His brother is? Wait. If that love triangle is not weird, I don't even know what is weird. Okay? All right, this one, I'm going to have to read this one from my notes because it is that crazy. All right, here we go. They need a crown to fix Jackson's broken soul, but need to go to prison for it to free a blacksmith to unlock the chains on the unkillable beast so they can get the crown from the beast, who is actually a gargoyle, to defeat the Vampire King. Yeah. I still kept reading. All right, moving on. I forgot to mention, someone dies. It's like laughable at this point. Okay. Oh man. Book 4. All right. Surprise. Another surprise. Grace gets the crown from the unkillable beast. But guess what? He is her grandpa. Yeah, I know. And he's also a gargoyle. So hey, she's not alone. Plus. But they must win some tears in yet another game so that they can unlock the frozen gargoyle army to once again try to defeat the Vampire King. Also, someone dies. Book 5. Okay. This is debatable. A lot of people hate this book. I actually really liked this one. Book 5 covers a 4-month window where Hudson was trapped inside Grace's stone gargoyle body from book 1 when she saved the school, because all teenage heroines save the, monster school. This is how it goes. And they have I didn't mention, but Grace has no memory of this throughout like book 2 and 3 and leading up to this point, right? He just says like, we had a great time together, trapped together, before you woke up from your gargoyle sleep. And so this accounts for that time, and it is a love story. So she falls in love with him during her gargoyle dream sleep, kind of. And they are caught in this lair of his where they don't talk for like a year. By the way, 4 months is longer than a year. It's a lot of time, but a whole year of it, they don't even speak. And she mentions his Versace underwear like 114 times. I shit you not. Wow. It is funky. I will say it's funky. It didn't overly fit in terms of like the setting and how it was written. I don't love, but I do love Hudson and Grace. So, book 5. This is a book that the author says can actually fit in anywhere. You can read it pretty much anytime you want, as long as you read it after the first book. However, I strongly recommend, if you even read this series, because I'm telling you it's the worst one I ever read, and I'm totally not kidding. If you do read this, I would read it 5th. Okay, now the best part. Cherish, the last book. I DNF'd it. I know, I know. Why am I doing a show about the worst book series I've ever read if I DNF'd it? Well, that's because I will still probably read it. And that's because I am a glutton for punishment. And that's because I can't put any book down and I cannot help myself. It has sat on my bedroom floor, next to my bed, next to the stack. I don't know if any of you have a stack, but I do. Next to the stack, actually half read. I am half read. It's only like 250 pages and I will be done. And I just can't do it. It starts off, she's at college. They're past the academy. They're past Vampire Cyrus. They're past all of this. But she must go backwards. Like she has to repeat something that she's already done. She has to go back to the Shadow Realm, which I didn't really mention too much, but comes in the Charm book with her backstory with Hudson. And the Shadow Realm is like the worst part of the series, in my opinion. And that's about the point when I realized, like, oh, I don't know if I can do this again. She's got to go back to the Shadow Realm to fix something. And I can't right now. And it's been a year since I've tried. And I will probably do it. I think I will, because I want to give this series away to someone who I know just loves this kind of trashy writing. And I know who I'm sending it to, and I think she'll love it. But I have to finish this first. So I'll do that just so I can send this. It's actually beautiful, just so I can send this beautiful box set to her. But oh man, rough go. All right, so that is the quick overview. We're going to get into why I think this is the worst series ever. But typically how we do things on this show is we give our loves, we give our hates, then we go into the story, the magic, the world, the spice, whatever points are in this. If there's a map, we cover that, but not on this show. All right, so we're going to go through this fast. Quick loves. Read super fast, like super fast. Love the take on mating bonds. And gargoyles are cool and should be in more books. I'm a 90s kid and I loved the Gargoyle show. So that was a giant bonus for me and honestly probably why I kept reading. Quick hates. Love triangles are forced for representation. Nobody get mad at me. I read more books that are LGBTQ friendly than I read so many of them. I love it. I have no discrimination. But in this book, it felt forced, and I've read that from a lot of reviewers. Like Jackson, I'm just going to say it. So I told you a little bit about the Jackson love triangle and the Hudson thing and Grace, but then Jackson switches side and someone else switches side and it gets really confusing and it didn't fit. That's all I had to say. Anyway, I was going to be quick on that. I was supposed to just list out hates, but that one needed an explanation because I don't want anybody to hate me for it. But I promise if you read it too, you'd be like, oof, wow, didn't see it going that way. Okay. What else do I hate? The writing. Calder. We'll get into Calder. I hate Calder. By the way, there is a spin-off series on said Calder, who is a manticore, that came out last year. So May of last year, the first book came out, and this year, the next book will come out, and it will be a series of 3. Just so you know, I'm not reading it. I'm not touching it. I'm going nowhere near that book. Calder is a hot freaking mess. All right, so time to get into where we talk about the 4 parts of the book on this show usually, and this will point you in the direction of why you should or shouldn't read it, even though I'm telling you it is poo. Okay, so the story. Let's talk about that. Why did I keep reading this series? Oh man, it had so much potential. It has so much potential. Vampires, great. Gargoyles, great. Dragons, love. Witches and magic, love. Royal vampires and drama, yes please. So why didn't it work? And in general, most of these books are just too long. I think some of these are I'd have to pull one out and look, but I think they're 900 pages. These don't go less than 500 pages. They're always in the 6, 7s, 800. It's a lot of pages, man. And it's not needed. The author tried too hard, and there's sections of the book and subplots and interesting plot points that just all got crammed into one. In the first book, the fact that we have someone whose parents were killed off and they're sent to this academy, by the way, in Alaska, what the hell? I don't even know. And there's so many different creatures here. And there's all these subplots about what's going on with her uncle and Macy's mother's dead. And she has this love triangle starting, but yet her love triangle guy is fighting with a dragon dude. And Then some witch tries to sacrifice her, and there's a bloodletter who's a vampire that lives up in the Alaskan mountains and eats hikers. And time was spent on that stuff, okay? Like, I'm fine with a vampire who's like a teacher. Like, it's basically like a mysterious mentor in the hills for her boyfriend, Jackson. And he, like, goes to her for help on things, and that's intriguing. But, like, so much pages spent on, like, bloodletting hikers. And, like, I don't know, you guys. Too much. Too much. The story's there. It's good. Focus on it. Leave the rest alone. You don't need it, Tracy. You don't need it. I feel like I need to go to like anger management after this, because even reviewing it, I feel my blood pressure just like. Let's also talk about the writing, shall we? All right, so the writing is YA. This book wants to be NA at times, but it's not. It's very much PG-13. But it's bad. It's bad. So this is written from teenagers' point of views, very much so. And I've read a bunch of books from teenager point of views, but it's not written. It almost writes in shorthand. Like, I'm surprised the author didn't type LOL and like AF. I think she did type AF. Oh my God. So like a lot of this is even text message. So you get like little indents when text messages are being sent, and there's like a whole bunch of text conversations, and you get like he's so hot for real. I kid you not. It is painful. The writing is painful. And I think I let myself read this because, again, gargoyles, and I was intrigued. Now, we don't get gargoyles till the very end, so I know this is spoilery, but I wanted to read more on that. I did love the mating bond theory. I loved how the strings worked. I love how Hudson comes in at the end. I wanted that triangle. It was good. So I kept reading, and also because it reads so fast. The print is large. The teenage speaks makes it go fast. Like, I'd sit down for 60 minutes and read 100 pages. So really, I just plowed through the first book, and then I was actually intrigued. I'm like, okay, I want to know more about Hudson. This is interesting. Okay. We get into the next book, and I'm like, oh, now we're getting like the royal vampire struggles and the house struggles, and why Hudson and Jackson are the way they are because of their parents. And I found all of that intriguing. So the story is actually interesting. The writing is just so very, very bad. I kid you not. The worst writing I have ever read in my entire life, and I have teenagers and have read their essays for school. This is shit. It's absolute, total travesty shit. And I read almost every single word of it. That's on me. A little bit more about the writing and why I hate Calder. Calder is a manticore. They meet Calder in the prison where they have to go rescue the blacksmith to undo the chains that lock down the unkillable beast. Okay, they gotta get this blacksmith out of jail. Calder is in the cell that they're locked in with, and Calder's a manticore. And Calder is self-righteous and selfish and loves herself, doesn't love anybody else really. There's one other, I won't go into it too much. And there's fighting scenes, right? There's battles. And Calder legit will stop. Like, they're battling, you guys. This gets me in books like this all the time. When this got me in Fourth Wing too, when they're like in a dragon battle and someone looks over and is like, good one. When they take someone down, I'm like, yeah, man. Like, fist bump in the air. No, I don't think that happens. Anyway, so similar to that, but worse, where they're fighting and she literally stops to wonder if she put the right nail color on, or she'll swish her hair dramatically on purpose and be like, but do I look okay? And it's done in this way that's not funny because it's too much. It's so bad. And like, they're even training for battles. Because in this next book, Court, when she goes to the gargoyle court and she has to like train up and become a queen and really command this army, like Calder's there. And Calder is constantly asking to be told she's beautiful, or saying I'm beautiful, or I know I look good in this armor, or yes, I totally just beat you in that training. And I was so good and beautiful, like stops and says it out loud. And I don't know, it's so bad. I'm weeping blood, I think. You can't see it, but it's happening. I'm weeping bloody tears right now. I hate Calder. Never hated a character more in my entire life. This is the worst character in any book on the history of ever. Hatred. All right, moving on. Magic. Okay, so this book isn't necessarily about magic, but it is about magical creatures. So I give it high marks for that. There is a ton of magical creatures, and I love magical creatures. And the great thing about magic in this book is it doesn't seem like it is like everywhere and infinite. It does have limits to it. And the witches, like their spells aren't instant. So there's witches in here and they have to make portals for them to travel. So travel's not instant either, unless like it takes a lot of energy to make a portal. There's a lot of effort that the author goes through to talk about how this magic's being done. And they have to get ingredients a lot during this book. So it's just not instant. And I love that about this. So I wouldn't call it a magic system, but I would give high marks for that because I found the approach to be very I guess realistic from a magical standpoint. And probably the only thing that was a little bit off is some of the creatures seemed a little bit OP. I wanted there to be a bit more balance. Like the vampires, they're very OP. Like the wolves intrigued me because we would get these situations where, a wolf would be so powerful they can take on a vampire. But really, when you look at the characteristics of the wolf and what they can do, they have super speed and they can jump super high and they're strong. And I'm like, some of these vampires have like mind control and can like make things disappear with their mind. That part was a bit off too. So super OP in some areas, not balanced in others. But for the most part, it was all there. The world. So the world in this series, or the setting, is vast. They travel all over. They use portals a lot. Macy is a witch, and she can draw upon portals, and she gets them pretty much everywhere they're going. So that's interesting to me. There's a land where there's giants. They were super interesting to me, and the setting is fun. It's not like overly detailed. The author doesn't spend a ton of time like describing each section outside of the forest that the giants live in, which I thought was like well done. But yeah, not too much attention on the full world itself, but just know that it's vast, and that is interesting to the story. So spice, let's talk about that. So I mentioned it a bit earlier. This book is YA, but is doing everything in its power to push that. If there's limits to YA writing, then this book discovered them. This wants to be NA so bad. So actually talking about like sex in detail does not happen. However, whenever someone is bitten by a vampire, the vampire juices, there's a better word, that are released into your body are orgasmic. So there's a lot of talk about that, descriptive, and it is high spice level. Like reading that was enjoyable. It was a ton of fun. If you like spicy books, those scenes are fantastic. Really well done. But they're all done without sex. So sex is definitely mentioned. A lot of the characters talk about like what they did last night or who they were with last night, but the spicy scenes aren't detailed like that. So it still stays in that YA category. I would say older YA if you're trying to recommend this to like teens, just because it does talk about sex enough. It just depends on what your boundaries are. But I would say like 15, 16 older, just because it does get quite detailed. But the spice was high. Spice was high without like going there. So I would give it a 4. It was good. Yeah. If you like spicy books, hey, there you go. I didn't talk about the lawsuit, but let's talk about another thing that is blatantly obvious, which is the almost direct ripoff of so many things Twilight. All right, so I want to point out a couple things. First off, the jacket covers. I mean, come on, you guys. I don't know. You can't even pretend that these aren't like almost exactly the same. I mean, we have flowers and they're bloody and the covers are black and everything else is in white. Author's names at the bottom, white. Title at the top, white. Similar fonts. Hello, rip off. And if that weren't enough, we have this chess piece on this one, which is talking about, like queens and kings and court, right? It's chess. So, and then we have court here, which is kings and queens. And there's a queen's piece in these books that's part of the plot. It's just like so much copied. And I'm going to zoom in on this one here, which is a standalone book. This standalone book has an hourglass on the cover. And it is The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner, and it is a novella as part of the Eclipse series, probably less known, but this one has an hourglass on it. And if we head on over here into the Crave series, we have this book, Charm, with an hourglass on it. Look, and it looks like bloody red sand running through it, where, I don't know. So does this one have, bloody red sand running through it? It does, doesn't it? Come on, please. Sometimes I see people arguing this on Goodreads and Reddit that it is not a ripoff of Twilight, but there's several plot points that align up almost perfectly. There's the 2-boy, 1-girl love triangle, back and forth, I love you, you love me, who cares? I don't know. It's not so much a ripoff of Twilight because there's so much else going on in the story, but it was borrowed very, very heavily. We'll just say that. All right. So after all that, I still think this book is out there for someone, even though I still think it is the worst book series I ever read, even though I will still at some point read the last one. Some of you got something out of all of this. Some of you heard me say this is a fast read. The mating bonds are cool. It's shitty writing, but there's some cool parts in the story. And you're like, yes, sign me up. So if that's you, then yes, enjoy. I am just one YouTuber among a sea of many who reads a ton of books. And just because I did not like this book series at all at the end, it doesn't mean you won't. There's definitely parts where I was super happy, of course, or I wouldn't have kept reading. But hot mess. Interesting parts. If you want to dive into that cesspool, you go right ahead. Anyhow, that is our show. I hope you enjoyed. Tune back in next time as Rob and I will be reviewing a book together. And please like and subscribe. See you again.